Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,400 comedians for the last 50 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's Mr. Steve Lee. Yay!
Hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good. You okay?
Yeah, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this.
No worries. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about your career for the next hour or so, and I'd like to kick off by asking you, how did you become a comedian in the first place, please?
Well, I always thought there was a book in me, so I ended up going to college one night, doing creative writing. I signed up for a course, but the teacher was always ill. So in a chance conversation with somebody, I said that a bit frustrated, teacher's ill. They said, "Oh, you don't want to bother with that. Why don't you do this?" And it was a comedy writing course with Logan Murray,
Right.
the Tring Comedy Festival. And so basically what they do is they pick 12 wannabe comedians, give them 8 weeks of intensive training. And after that, they pair them up with professional comedians and they rotate around 4 pubs. They do their 5-minute set in 3 different pubs. And then the payoff for the audience is that having sat through these rank amateurs, they get to see the likes of Richard Herring, Mandy Knight, there's some fantastic
Brilliant.
Arthur Smith, etc.
Oh, he's amazing. What sort of year was this then?
So that was 2015.
Right.
That was where the course started in the May and it ended up in, I think the graduation was in the June.
Right. Because you mentioned Logan Murray. He's been on this podcast, and the amount of comedians that he's nurtured and took off on their careers is extraordinary.
Whose lives he's ruined, Richard.
Yeah.
The number of people whose lives he's ruined by giving them comedy.
I know. I hope that's not meant.
No.
So, I've seen you live, and I've seen you perform a character called Mad Ron, who is,
Yep.
I think, genius. Made me laugh out loud for the whole 45 minutes, hour I saw it. How did he come about? Where did he come from?
So after the writing course that I did, to be honest, I didn't want to do any performances. I just wanted to write.
Right.
And I then finished that thing with the Tring Festival and decided that I just try and wrote for Newsjack and tried to write different bits and pieces and whatever, and just didn't get anything accepted at all. Got a bit frustrated by it and thought, well, I did enjoy that course. I'll go on another course, a writing course. And as luck would have it, Logan was running another course in the Museum of Comedy in London.
Right.
So I headed off down there and did the course. And as soon as I walked in, Logan said to me, "Oh, how are you getting on with your comedy?" And I said, "Well, I haven't done anything." And he said, "Why not?" He gave me a bit of a telling off. And I said, "Well, I only want to write, really." He said, "Well, if you want validation for what you do, you really need to go and perform it because people will take you seriously when you do." So literally, during that course, I wrote some material and basically it was about how I felt tuition fees were wrong, that the students could rob a post office and get all the money they wanted, and if they got caught, and they pay for their tuition fees, but if they get caught, they could do a degree in the prison library afterwards. And that was basically the basic premise. And I read it out and somebody said, well, it was Emily McQuaid, I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
A really, really funny comedian.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that'd be great as a character. And then, of course, there is a passing resemblance to Phil Mitchell. And, of course, all I did then was I did a Phil Mitchell impression and did the material. And then I thought, oh, that was all right. So I didn't do anything about that. Then I went round lots of open mic nights in London, for party piece and whatever. just to watch because I had nerves. I didn't really want to
Yeah,
perform.
yeah,
And then gradually came around to the fact that I thought, do you know, if I do this, I wouldn't be the worst. I wouldn't be the best, but I'd be mid-table, and there's no embarrassment in doing it. So I went out and did it one night, 1st of December 2015, Mad Ron, roasting hot day it was. 1st of December, we were all wearing t-shirts.
wow.
It was amazing, yeah. Um, and did Mad Ron. So there you go. And then somebody saw it, offered me a paid gig, literally within about 2 performances, and then I ended up on a bill with Mike Gunn, and
Yeah,
then I ended up in Balham New Act of the Year competition,
wow.
and you know, it just kind of overtook me really.
Well, I wouldn't put you mid-table. I'd put you high up because it's a very accurate portrayal, and it's a very funny act. You're consistently funny with it, and it's interesting that you mentioned Logan Murray and the writing course, because initially my blog was going to be a book, but I couldn't afford the publishing rights. So I
Right.
thought, well, if it's a blog, it's continuous, and look how it's taken off, because
Mm,
it's the support that I give to any comedian who wants to have a go is if I can try and be at every single comedy gig, which is impossible, but I will. I'll try and mix and match. It's not just the big hitters. And I actually had a go at stand-up comedy once on my own in the past. I was at the Edinburgh Fringe years ago, and it was a gong show for an old folk gong show. It was a very strange day, but the promoter said, "Yeah, they'll love you. Go on, go on." So I walked out and I said, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, but I can't see the resemblance myself." And of course, it was double. One old fella at the back just yelled, "Fuck off!" and cunt us off. and the promoter went, "Have another go." I go, "Oh, I don't know about that." I said, "I think I found my calling in the audience," which of course proved to
mm.
be. But never say never again. I've got a lot of admiration for you to get up and do it. To kick off with, as you say, you must have had nerves when you initially started. Or do you still get them now?
I don't so much now.
No.
It's funny, I did to start with, and I was terrible. But if I end up in a new situation, then I do get a little bit nervous. Somewhere that I've never played before. You know, if you've never played a rugby club before or never played at some, you go into a new situation, you tend to get a bit of nerves because you worry about what it's going to be like. But you know, generally,
I think it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it?
yeah.
Once you get past that, you find. So, describe more your first ever gig. When this first paid gig, when you walked out there, it must have been daunting.
So the first gig in sort of in Tring, I think that's
Yeah.
probably the most relevant thing. So there's 100 people in the pub basically. It's absolutely jammed in, um, and literally, I, you know, I was just pacing up and down, so nervous. It was just ridiculous. Didn't really want to do it. Felt sick. It's
Wow.
horrible, really. And
Was
then I went out and just went and did my stuff, and it went pretty well actually. It went pretty good. But then of course you got 3 more, haven't you, after that one?
I was
So you
going to
get the
say, were you
relief.
first on the bill?
No, well, you rotate around 4 different pubs, you see.
Oh, I see. Right.
So in
Yeah.
the same night you play to about 350, 400 people. You
Wow.
rotate around all the other pubs.
That
And
must have
then by
been
the time we got
terrifying.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
By the time we got to the 4th pub, that's where all my friends were. So yeah.
A good night was had by all.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, I had a couple of beers afterwards, and that was it, really. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's so good. For those who don't know, what do you like to talk about on stage?
So Mad Ron is a vehicle for comparing modern day to the 1970s, 60s, or anything, any kind of modern reference and compared to how it used to be. And I like to think that it's a little bit of a surreal take on things. It's kind of the jokes on the character rather than elsewhere. It's his really weird world that he's just leapt into and can't make sense of. So he's a fish out of water. He's been released from prison and everything's changed. He doesn't like it, basically. So yeah.
It's so good when we saw you at the Edinburgh Fringe. You had like you had like cards with subjects on, and you would
Yeah.
pick them up and just talk about them in his world. It was lovely. It was really good. Tell me about your writing process. How do you go about saying what you say?
Um, well, I think, well, so I've got thousands of these that I wander around with,
Notebooks.
little notebooks. And then, but I'm terrible with the notebooks because sometimes I fill about 10 pages in. I think I read it back and think, oh, there's a lot of good stuff in there. If I lost that, I'd lose a load of good stuff. So I better start a new notebook. So they're not all full. Um,
That's everybody's got their own way.
yeah, but really, I just get a subject and start writing about it. Write any old rubbish, any old crap down on a bit of paper, and then I'll do it freehand, not on the computer.
Right?
Um, and then I look at it and go, well, there might be 500 words, it might be 1,000 words, whatever it is. And I'll go, right, that's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke. All the rest of it's rubbish. And then what I'll do is then take those 3 jokes or 4 jokes and then write the minimum amount of material to link those 3 or 4 jokes.
I see,
Oh,
right. So you then end up with a however long you do, you're going round in a circle and come back to the set to the start it again, or does it all link in somehow?
well, it's literally if you pick a subject, smoking, for
Yeah,
example, I'd write, as much as I knew about smoking on a bit of paper and then just look at it. And then I'd just take the jokes out. Well, that's a joke. And then just go, okay, now I'm going to talk about smoking. And this is how I'm going to do it. I want that joke, and that joke. And then just put some material to link the jokes or
I'm
put a
with you.
framework around the jokes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I
Okay.
think that's the best way for me. It means I get a very dense, joke dense set,
Yeah,
but it's very difficult to write enough material to
I
to
can
get
imagine. Yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh,
Because when we saw you, it was about 50 minutes, something like that.
yeah, I had cut it down a bit because originally, the early part of Edinburgh, the Fringe, there was a lot of audience interaction, which kind of made it a little bit. It wasn't quality. It wasn't enough quality there,
Right,
and so I just deliberately cut out 2 bits of the show and a bit of the audience interaction.
right.
Made it 50 minutes, and then that was it. Just over 50
So,
minutes.
so it's interesting because of the style of the character. You want it obviously as tight as you can to get as many jokes in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, um,
He's a no nonsense kind of a guy, so no
yeah,
nonsense kind of language around the jokes. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. It's great. You mentioned before about the comedy competition that you won. What are your views of comedy competitions? Do you think they're a good thing? Do you think they help a comedian's career?
So I think it depends where you live, really.
Mm,
Um, I was quite close to London. I've moved now in Leicestershire, but I found that going into do open mics in London, they are a complete waste of time.
right.
A lot of them are a waste of time. There's 1 or 2 that are decent. You know, Funny Feck was good. G&B comedy was absolute, superb. Really,
Yeah.
they always have audiences. Funnily enough, they're both bringers. The bringer gigs are vilified by the whole of the comedy community, but it is a necessary evil, I think, at times. Otherwise, you're playing to nobody.
Yeah.
But I suddenly realised that if you did a comedy competition, you could get to play in front of 20 or 30 genuine audience. And where else am I going to get 20 or 30 genuine audience at the level I was at?
Yeah.
So I entered competition. So I entered Leicester Square New Comedian of the Year. I got through to the semi-final in the first year.
Congratulations.
So I had 3 audiences of 50, which I would not have got had I not entered the competition.
Yeah.
Same Yellow Comedy, there was 20, 30 people in the audience for those competitions, and yeah, it was great. Entered Natis, and yeah, 700 people in the final.
That's
So
brilliant. So good.
400 people in Leicester Square. And where am I going to get those kind of audiences? Where am I going to test my stuff and know if it's any good without entering competitions?
Yeah,
That's the way I've found it.
It's interesting what you say, because just before Christmas I went to the Hull Comedy Festival,
Yeah,
and we saw on winning the BBC New Comedian of the Year 2023 was Frankie Munro,
yeah,
Joe Walters, and he won it on the Monday night, and they had him already billed on the Thursday night, and you couldn't move in the room, and I think it was purely because of the competition winning.
mm,
But I mean, he was a great act, and he is a great act, but uh, I mean, he deserved a standing ovation at the end of it. But I thought, I wonder if there are a lot more people in because of the competition, and you do have a very good point, because where I always say to a lot of comedians who have been on here, I can imagine it's all experience, but they go for years flogging away, and they never seem to. Some of them go to where they want to be. They're just
mm.
forever doing it, and that's fine. But there's so much talent out there that if they want to, they could do more. I don't know, but it is interesting what you say.
Yeah. Uh, you know, and I won a couple, and I kind of you know placed in Natis, which was nice, and yeah, some good stuff.
Yeah,
Good experiences. So I think the other thing is, if you do a competition, audiences, and you do reasonably well, um, promoters will look at that and say, well, he's not going to be phased if he goes in front of an audience of 100 or 200,
yeah,
because there he is performing in front of 400. He knows his stuff and he's done it.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
you know, bit of a proving ground, really.
It is. It is. It's very good. Um, I can't ever imagine you having a bad gig, because I love your act. I think it's a great act, and I think the way that you go about it is wonderful. Um, can you describe for me your best and worst ever gig, if you've had one?
Um, I didn't have in the early days. Um, so the character had to evolve in the early days, because what I found was, I mean, I'm not an actor. I'm not, I'm just a bloke that does IT and then is titting about with a bit of comedy at night,
You and me
And
both, but I'm in the audience.
and so what happened was, I wrote the material, and I found that I could shut an audience when I got better at the character. I could shut the audience down because of the material I was using. And so, for example, I had this joke, and maybe it's not a great joke. Certainly wouldn't use it now, but it's basically back when I was back back when I was doing jobs, we could club someone, kick in the head, stuff the body down a drain, and go out with a bloody good sing song around the piano. And because we have manners, we'd send the widow a bunch of flowers. Now,
Ah.
now it's
Wow.
it's a completely in the context of everything,
Yeah,
it was just the most stupid thing that you could possibly
yeah, yeah.
imagine. Yet that saying that would shut an audience down. But
Interesting.
it
Very
didn't
interesting.
happen
Yeah.
until I started getting better at the character. Once I got good at the character, performing the character, then the dialogue had to change, because as soon as I started talking about crime, as soon as I started talking about audiences want to know this guy's opinions on stuff, but don't want to know what he's done.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think one of the early days I did a gig, and I was a bit unfortunate because I turned up there. I'd only done about 15, 16 gigs. And the guy that was running it was an open mic. And the guy said, right, he went round pretty much everybody. People are very experienced, asking them to open, and nobody wanted to open. So he said to me, right, well, are you prepared to, would you be prepared to open? So I opened, and of course, opening, very inexperienced, 16, 17 gigs in. And it wasn't silence, but it wasn't very nice.
No. It must be. I feel so sorry for comedians who, because the material that you write, you think is the greatest thing ever because you've written it and you've performed and you've tried it out and this is going to work. And when you go out there and don't get any laughs, that must be daunting.
Mm. It wasn't no laughs. It was kind
Yeah.
of, it was just a little bit of a blank look, as it were, really, rather than, you know, and yeah, and the lots of the other acts were laughing, but it didn't feel very good. No, not
It's
at all.
the old Sarah Millican adage, isn't it? Where if you do a gig and it doesn't go very well, you have until I think it's 10 o'clock the following day to forget about it, and then it's the next day, and the next day is going to be better, and
Mm.
that's how you progress. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I don't think pretending it never happened is is very healthy.
Yeah,
Sort of healthy. I don't think you learn from it. If a joke fails, for example, I always record every set I do, and
right.
if a joke fails, it's normally because I've got a word wrong or an inflection wrong or something wrong. Then occasionally you find that there's one joke that people aren't getting.
Yeah.
You know, one crowd might get it in six or seven, and you just think, hang on a minute, that's got to go because nobody's getting it. But it's interesting.
Do you play all your recordings back to make that decision about what stays and what goes?
I don't play them all back,
No.
but I've got a mental kind of note when I've left stage. You go, well, that bit didn't go well,
Yeah.
or that didn't sound right. I made a mistake there. I need to make sure I do that differently next time. So I
Right.
listen back to that bit.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if something weird happens in the audience, you can get a bit of gold off that if you
Yeah.
need to react to something. I mean, I got I was in a gig once, and somebody would not stop talking all the way through the gig, and every act was suffering from it.
Yeah.
So I said to this woman, "Oh, sorry, what's your name?" And she said Sheila or whatever it was, and I said, "Oh, Sheila, I'm sorry, I didn't recognise you there for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sheila. Last week she did a sponsored silence and managed and managed to raise 8 pence for charity."
That's
And that,
brilliant.
and that was, off the top of her head, that's
That
what
is
I came up with.
genius.
And
One of my favourite ever put downs. And believe me, I never heckle. You're not there to hear the audience. You're there to hear the comedian. But I know Nick Helm, and he appeared on stage, and he was really quite aggressive to the crowd. So much so that the line behind me got up and walked out. And as they walked out, he shook my hand and he went, "Rich," he said, "why is everybody leaving? Because everybody knows you're the biggest fucking cunt in this room." And he got the biggest laugh going. I'm like,
was
he's
that
got me
in
very
was that in Pleasance in about 2019?
yeah, around about then. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Was it in Edinburgh in
yeah,
Pleasance?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was at one of those shows. Yeah,
Very funny man. The loveliest bloke as well.
yeah.
In because I've had a beer with him. You mentioned earlier on about nerves. How do you cope with any nerves before you go on stage? Do you still get nervous now? I know you said you with new venues and everything, but do you have a process to remove the nerves before you're doing a gig?
I think if you learn it, if you learn your stuff
Yeah.
and you know your stuff, I think, it's a bit too late 2 minutes before you get on stage to worry about it. As long as you've learned the stuff as it is,
Yeah.
you just haven't got to worry about it. There's only so much you can do.
One
But
of
it's like
the
put the coat on, that's it. I've become a different person, and then just don't worry about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the most creative things I've done, other than this blog, I used to be in an amateur dramatic group in the civil service, and we put the Odd Couple on, and I played Oscar, and the lines that I had to learn for that. There's about 1,000 lines in it, but bouncing off the other character, it made it a lot easier if there's somebody else on stage.
Mm.
Has there ever been a time where you have lost your way and you've brought it back, or do you use the audience to remember where you are by interacting with them?
No, I don't think I've lost my way
No,
at all.
no.
It's just occasionally, and I think everybody's done it. Everyone's left out a bit of material they intended to put in, but a couple of times I've walked off going, "Oh, I was supposed to put that new line in, I didn't." You know, you,
It's always the way. So there's
yeah.
always tomorrow. um, how do you remember all your routines? Do you write notes down? You write it on your hand? You have it in your head? You said you
So
learn it all in advance.
yeah, so to learn something, literally, I I've got it written down. I transfer it from the book onto the computer because it's easier,
Yeah.
make changes and whatever. And literally, I'll I'll read it and then not look at it and try and read it again or remember it. And then I'll get to a point where I can't remember the bit or the exact words. And so then I'll stop, rewind a sentence, read it, and then go back, say it again. And then eventually it sinks in.
It sinks
But
in. Yeah.
but just to rewind and then learn those little bits. Yeah.
I like your style of meticulously learning it. There's a few comedians I know who just appear to wing it on stage, but I think everybody has to, because you're performing in front of an audience. You have to have some idea of what you're going to do.
Well, I think it's a little bit of a hangover of say hangover is the wrong word really. It's performing with a lot of one-liner comedians in Edinburgh.
Yeah, yeah,
So Masai Graham runs a one-liner show. I ended up on the one-liner show. Gary Delaney was on the show at one stage and he sat down with me, looked at some of my material and just gave me an idea how to tweak some stuff. And then I ended up being very, severe in terms of editing my jokes. And of course, if you edit your jokes down, the wording has to be exact. And if you've got the wording right, I mean, Milton Jones, Gary Delaney, Mark Simmons,
yeah,
Masai,
yeah,
all of those guys have got all of those jokes that they say are written and said exactly time after time after time. Every word is in the right place, isn't it? It's not, there's no word out of
yeah,
place
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because otherwise the joke doesn't work. So
yeah.
you have to learn your stuff. You have to learn your jokes.
I'm looking for. We're recording this at the start of 2024, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to Leicester for a week, and I'll see Masai there. He does wonderful shows there at the King Richard the Third pub,
Yeah.
and as you say, he's a great one-liner merchant, and I love the one-liner comedians. I love Mark Simmons. I think he's
Mm,
wonderful, and Tim Vine and Milton Jones and them all. And you're right that the wording has to be so precise, and
mm.
it's great that you're word perfect before you go on. That's wonderful. You know,
Well, I wouldn't say we're perfect. Sometimes you have complete brain farts while you're on stage.
But you plough on,
Unbelievable
my
stuff.
friend, you plough on. Let's move on to Edinburgh. I've been very, very lucky to be able to go to the Edinburgh Fringe since 2005. It's my 18th year, 19th year this year. I absolutely love to go. Tell me about your first experience of the Edinburgh Fringe. Did you go as a punter, or were you an act, or what happened?
So I went in 2000 and 2001
Right.
as a punter,
Yeah.
and I just absolutely loved it. I was sitting doing literally 8 to 10 shows a day, like you, Rich. You know,
Yeah, I'm
getting
not very
up,
famous.
and then you end up absolutely knackered at the end
Yeah.
of it. Really, there
Need
is only
holiday at
so
the
much
end of
listening you can do, isn't there?
it.
Really, but it was just wonderful, seeing people like Omid Jalili,
Yeah.
Rob Rouse.
Yes. Super.
Rouse in a paddling pool full of baked beans, stripped off, got onto a paddling pool of baked beans.
He
Omid
is
Jalili
he is a
doing,
unique act.
yeah, Omid Jalili doing his, starting the show with an Iranian accent, and then half an hour in, changing. I saw, I talked to Adam Bloom
Oh
a
yeah.
while ago, actually, and he did support for Emo Phillips.
Wow.
And Emo Phillips had quite a bit of time off, and he was in Edinburgh doing a show, and we got tickets for the first night, and he did the show in his own voice,
Yeah.
without that silly,
Yeah.
say silly, the
Yeah.
squeaky
Yeah.
voice he used to do. He didn't do that. He didn't do the voice. He just did his normal voice. And then about 20 minutes in, he said, "I can't do it like this," and just went to his squeaky voice. And then after that, Adam Bloom did warm up for him, 7 to 10 minute warm up for Emo Phillips, stuff like that. But I just couldn't get enough of the comedy.
There's
Count Arthur
something.
Strong, I saw doing Count Arthur Strong's Forgotten Egypt.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. 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 There's
But
something
I've,
about
I've
the
got two
atmosphere of the
stories
fringe.
though, Rich, you might be interested in
Yeah.
that in those. So we're in the stand after seeing the Stand Late Show
Yeah.
one night, and Simon Munnery was in there, and I got talking to him. I was talking to him for about 3/4 of an hour, something like that, about all kinds of stuff. And then he said, "What are you up to now?" And I said, "Not a lot." He says, "Well, I can't go." He said, "Because my girlfriend's giving me the evils over there. I've got to go and uh, go with her." And he said, "But there's a performers show around the corner." He said, "It's not far away." He said, "Why don't you go?" And he said, "Just go and say you're me." So I went round the corner with my mate, pulled up at the door and went, "I'm Simon Munnery." "Oh, yes, Mr. Munnery. There's some tickets for some free beer. If you want to stay upstairs, or if you want to go downstairs, you can
Wow.
it's all free down there." We went down into the downstairs bit, and there's all the performers there. So that was
That is amazing. I mean, the thing that I get from doing the blog, I don't make any money out of it at all. I just support everybody because it's such a wonderful art form. And the lovely thing is the recognition I get, especially in Edinburgh, especially when I go around the comedy clubs. And last year there was four of us sitting in the Pleasance courtyard about 3 a.m. Most wonderful atmosphere, everybody's hammered. And all of a sudden I get, "Hello, Rich," from over here. It was Rose Matafeo,
all right.
but came up, give me the best hug, and I said, "When's the new series of Starstruck?" "Monday." I said, "I'll be watching." And that's just lovely, it's
Yeah.
because all I do is just sit there and laugh. I've obviously got 50 years worth of experience of watching you all, but I just love the atmosphere, and certainly Edinburgh is the best at doing that. You step off the train at Waverley and it just hits you. And certainly the last 2 or 3 years, I've been going around more festivals. So I'm looking forward to Leicester. I'm going to Hastings. I go to Brighton. I went to Buxton last year. because they're all year round. If you want to do that, and I love to go to different cities and have a look round, and then go to the comedy shows in the evening, and they're so well done. So
Mm.
so it's a magical, wonderful thing. Um, do you have the same structure to a gig, or does the material change from place to place?
It's generally pretty much the same. If it's a club set,
Yeah,
obviously you're going in with your A1 material,
yeah,
and you go in with that, and might change bits and pieces here and there.
yeah,
Um, I kind of go into a set. Generally, I'm doing 20-minute sets now. It's either opening or middles,
yeah,
and generally I start with a 25-minute set in my head, and then I edit down as I go along. So it will be right. Well, they don't. I'm not so sure they'll go for that bit, so I'm going to cut that bit out and do that. Or they're going a bit crazy here. They need calming down. So what I'll do is I'll put this story in to slow the pace down,
yeah,
so that I can hit them and build the pace up again. Um, you know, so yeah, I go in with a 25-minute set. Beginning and the end are pretty much always the same, but yeah, I edit the middle bits as I
yeah.
go along.
So it's not like, for example, Ken Dodd, where he would have different jokes in different cities or anything like that.
No, I mean, it's something I'm thinking about,
Mm.
because I mean, I did a gig in Stevenage when I first started, and
Mm.
it was just a tough gig. It was British Aerospace, Airbus. It was, and literally everyone was having a tough time.
Mm.
And I went on and I said, uh, "Congratulations, Stevenage. Not even the Russians or the Americans are interested in getting a bus into space, but you lot are." And then I went, uh, and have you seen out there what you've got out there is a dual carriageway. It's not a motorway. Motorways are 3 lanes. And then I said, and as for your town centre, it's a leftover watchtower stuck in a paddling pool, um, with a clock on the side of it. And the whole place went mad. And I
That's
was
brilliant.
thinking, do you know what? I should really start doing a bit more of that, because it went so well that I should do some pre-prepared stuff about some different places. I think so.
We once saw Victoria Wood, God bless her, in Carlisle, my home city, and the amount of material she had about Carlisle was extraordinary. And
Mm,
and because she localized her audience, she could say whatever she liked. It
mm.
was magical to watch. She was wonderful. Um, do you have any ambitions as a comedian?
Uh, well, to be honest with you, I just enjoy it. I
Yeah.
just want to enjoy it, and then any byproducts from me doing what I'm doing and enjoying it, so be it, really. You know.
So if the opportunity comes along, you'll take it.
Yeah,
Depends
I
what
think
it
so.
is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, did you do any online gigs when we were in lockdown,
Yes, I
or
did.
you
Yeah.
did? Yeah. What did you think of them?
Um, they were they were what they were, weren't they? Really. It was. uh, they're not the same as a live environment.
Yeah,
However, you're doing a run through, aren't you? Run through your material, you're
yeah,
keeping, and I think it did me a lot of good, to be honest, as well, because I was active. When the lockdown finished, I got a call up to go and do a gig,
right.
and literally, I knew I knew my stuff because I've been doing lots of online gigs, and of course, I don't think a lot of people have been bothering, or so they people thought I was better than I was.
Oh, that's not fair.
And yeah,
But
and then
it
literally
is
I got
amazing.
booking after booking after booking, because
That's brilliant.
literally I was, as soon as lockdown lifted, it was there. So yeah.
There's something very, very special about a live performance.
Yeah,
It's the
definitely.
lights go down and you just think, entertain me. This is amazing. Whereas
Mm.
I used to sit here watching online comedy, and um, I when it first started off, there was no audio, so I would just sit there and laugh. And I thought I'd have to be taken away by my neighbours who were knocking on the windows, knocking on the walls. But the live experience is extraordinary, and I'm so glad it's back. Obviously,
But you might as well just watch specials on Netflix or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
rather
yeah,
than watch Zoom.
yeah.
Unless
Very much
there's
so.
jeopardy in terms of a live audience, it's
Yeah,
not worth
yeah.
it.
I'm celebrating 50 years remarkably watching stand-up comedy. So my first ever gig was Les Dawson in 1974, age 7. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
Mm. I was
Who's
just trying to
funny?
think there whether I was what age I was when I saw Les Dawson.
I've never forgotten it. It was brilliant.
Yeah,
He was a wonderful. He's top 5 still for me.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah, he's a legend.
yeah, top five. I mean, I think quite a few years ago, uh, I went to a club. I can't even remember where it was now,
Mm.
and Harry Hill was on,
Oh, mate.
and when he was doing a 20-minute set, and literally the setup, he did all the setups in the first 5 or 7 minutes,
Yeah,
and then bang, hit us with punchlines at the
yeah,
end of it. Oh my God. To be honest, I was glad he left the stage because I just couldn't take any more laughter.
yeah.
It was
He's
ridiculous.
so brilliant. He's so
Yeah.
brilliant. What's magical about him is that he's done all the TV stuff, and he now wants to come back in, and he's doing the smaller clubs again because he just
Mm.
loves his craft. He still has, after 30 years, my favourite opening line to any gig. I saw him downstairs at the King's Head. It must be 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, before he was famous, and he brushed past me. He was late, and he jumped up onto the stage and he went, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry I'm late. I had to have a testicle brought down." And there was a pause and a laugh, and then he said, "From Derby." And when I met him 20 odd years later, I told him this. He went, Rich, I'm still telling it." He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's one of the best.
And
Um,
Milton Jones is a
oh
particular
yeah,
favorite.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, I had a top five. Mandy Knight, I think is just.
Phenomenal.
I don't even know. I've not seen anything that she's done recently. I don't. Maybe I've just missed it whether she's still doing comedy or not. But
I think she still
she's
is. Yeah,
she's
she's still around.
absolutely brilliant.
She is just phenomenal if you get a chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I saw John. We used to go to the Hellfire Club in High Wycombe
yeah,
every week, and I think it was 10 years I didn't miss one.
yeah.
And we had the top five, and Harry Hill was there. John Gordillo was up there when he was
Oh,
arguing with
superb. Yeah.
himself, and there was lots and lots. Hattie Hayridge was up there. Lots and lots of great acts there.
What a lovely woman and a genuinely funny woman that Hattie is.
Yeah.
I my first bill at the Comedy Store in about 1988, when my brother was living down here and I used to come down, was Richard Morton, John Maloney, Hattie Hayridge, Phil Jupitus, and top of the bill was someone called Charles Fleischer, who was never heard of again because he went to voice Roger Rabbit in Hollywood, and it was like, this is extraordinary because he was all just this zany American comic with 1,000 voices. And I've
Mm.
never forgotten that night. She was joyous, Hattie Hayes, just complete innocence.
Oh
It could
yeah,
get away with murder.
yeah. And Norman Lovett was,
Yeah, yeah, superb.
like the
Yeah,
the two Red Dwarf,
yeah, yeah,
Hollies and Red Dwarf.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were
yeah.
equally as
They're just the
deadpan and
best.
funny.
Just the
Yeah.
best. Following on from that, like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience?
I've not been to as many.
No.
I certainly do go from time to time.
Yeah.
Um, I saw Rosie Jones the other day. It was
Oh, she's spot on.
very good.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
tour show is really good.
yeah,
Um, Sarah Millican, I saw.
yeah.
Um, you know, we saw Greg Davis a little while ago, and
She's
but
great.
you know, the beauty of doing this is that where I can, and I can't always do it because I've got a day job, got to get back for
Yeah.
calls in the morning, all this kind of stuff. Um, I stay and watch, probably 50% of, even if I'm opening, I'll try and see the whole show.
I was going to ask that. Do you stay if you're on
Mm,
first and watch the rest of them? And you say it's about a halfway house.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can't always.
No.
It's just too much juggling. You've got to get rest at some point.
Yeah, yeah,
And if it's like some of these 2 hours, 2.5 hours will drive.
yeah.
So if you stay to the end and it's 11 o'clock, you're not getting back
1
until
a.m.
1 a.m., half one. And by the time you've, gone to bed, you're not getting to bed till 2, and then you're
No.
not up till 10, and then yeah, so you got to be
It
careful.
can
So
be shattering. I've no doubt.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I've much enjoyed talking to you. This has been a fantastic hour or so, or however long we've done. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go? And where can people find you on social media? Do you have any podcasts, anything like that, or any tours?
No podcast, but we're planning to start releasing some TikTok and Instagram videos shortly.
Right, right,
Probably that'll start in February time.
right.
So you obviously this is going to go out in July. So
Well, they'll be up and running and
yeah, yeah.
massive following.
So yeah.
What's your social
Um,
media?
yeah, I'm doing tour support for Reg D Hunter
Fantastic.
as well. So I've got 7 dates booked in for that. Doing the Leicester Comedy Festival coming up.
I will see you
Got
there.
big plans for Edinburgh, something completely different. So
What
yeah,
dare I say, new character?
no, not a
No?
new character, same character, but yeah, it's just going to be kind of a bit of a
Things
departure.
are happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just trying to experiment, trying to get more
Why
strings to
not?
the bow.
Why not? The world's your
Yeah.
oyster. Where can people find you on social media? What's your handle?
So Madron Spanners
Right.
or Madron Facebook page.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, generally Madron on Twitter, Madron Spanners on Twitter. Sorry.
that's brilliant.
So yeah, all of those, all the usual things. Madron.
Yeah, it's great. Well, it's
Don't
such a
follow don't follow the town in Cornwall by mistake.
it's such a great character, and I'm so delighted that you've been able to do this. I always remember going for a drink with you at the Edinburgh Fringe,
Mm,
and I had a great night with you. You were so welcoming, and we just chatted like we're doing now about stand-up comedy. It's the most wonderful thing. I hope we can do it again soon, and I'm going to come and see you again very, very soon. And I hope to
lovely.
see you in Leicester, my friend, in February.
Excellent. Nice one.
All,
Thanks, Richard.
all the best to you. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks
Bye.
now. Bye bye.